Hi, I'm Philip VanDusen. I'm the owner and principal of Verhaal Brand Design. We're an agency that specializes in brand development, brand strategy, and graphic design. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to try and demystify the art and the science of brand design for you. At the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge and the tools that you need in order to design a powerhouse brand, so you can be recognized, remembered, and revered by your customers. Now, there's an old joke that says, an 800-pound gorilla walks into a room. Where does a gorilla sit? Well, the answer is anywhere he wants to. Now, I'm going to help you create the 800-pound gorilla of a brand design so you can dominate your niche and compete like the big brands. Build a brand perception that's impressive and consistent. Personal brand design is a really big topic, and it's a lot bigger than a 30-minute video. It can be totally overwhelming with lots of moving parts, but I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. Brand development has three components: brand research, brand strategy, and brand design. We're going to focus mainly on brand design in this video, but let's quickly define the other two. So brand research. Brand research is exactly that. You research the market you're entering. You research your audience, your competition. You define and map the opportunity. Brand strategy addresses the mission of your business, so your RTBs, or reasons to believe, for your consumers. Are you differentiated from the competition? Some commonly used branding tools are mission statements, brand positioning statements, brand personality definitions, consumer avatars, and the like. There are also some strategic proprietary tools like brand pyramids, but all those are going to be out of scope for this video. Brand design is about the perception of you in the hearts and minds of your consumer, your story, your authenticity, your passion, and your mission. All these things are expressed in visual and verbal design elements of your brand, things like colors, fonts, logos, and imagery. The reason you do this is to help customers develop a stronger connection with you and with your goods and services. Some questions you're going to need to answer are things like, how will you stand out from your competitors, and how will you be recognized? And also, what do your visual and verbal elements mean to communicate or mean to your audience? You may be saying, I still don't get it. What is brand design exactly? Well, let's use an example. There's a gentleman named Chris Ducker who's an internet marketer and has an online mastermind community called Youpreneur. Chris is really killing it in the brand design department. First of all, he uses a very strong, clear point of view on color across all of his brand touchpoints. He uses two photo styles, a full color style and a duotone style, one with orange and black. His personal brand also extends over to the Youpreneur Mastermind brand, and this two share the same brand design style. He even extends his style to the title slides of his presentations and videos. All of his social media channels are absolutely consistent. He uses the same color, banner images, fonts, and layout style whenever possible. His brand design tools rolled right into YouTube, where he uses similar brand elements. It's important to note that Chris can actually vary the type of photography that he uses because he's so consistent in every other element of his brand design. And you never really notice the change in photography because he's so consistent. Now, what are some benefits of good brand design? Well, greater mind share of your customers, for one thing, ownership of your niche, passionate customers, and it may even create leadership or partnership opportunities for you, like speaking engagements. It leads to recognition and prestige, so cash and prizes. What's not to like about that? It increases your value perception and also builds your brand equity. Brand design doesn't happen by accident, and if it does, it can be a wreck. Piecemeal design is a killer. It leads to inconsistency and a lack of impact on your customer's mind. The goal of great brand design is to be designed holistically, so not piecemeal if possible. It should be designed with one vision, with purpose, on purpose. So what commonly happens is someone will start a business and they'll design a logo. And then a month from them, they may need a website, so they'll choose a couple fonts or some colors. A couple months later, they design a book, so they'll have to choose an illustration style or a photograph. And over time, these brand elements may be developed by different designers. And none of them are tied together or may have different aesthetics. And they can turn into a confusing mess, or what I like to call a Frankenstein design. Now, great brand design is beautiful. It's simple and strategically sound. It communicates clearly, and it's differentiated from your competitors. It's also consistent, and it's memorable. So what do you need to do? You need to design a perception of who you want to be, because perception equals reality. You need to design a perception of what your customer wants and expects from you. So a financial guy might need a perception of trust. An adventure traveler might need a perception of excitement. A personal coach might need a perception of confidence. Different customers will be expecting different things of your business. Essentially, it boils down to this. What is the brand dress that you're going to be putting on? What's authentic for you? What persona are you going to create? What is the look and feel of how you are going to appear? What do you sound like? What's the world you're going to create around yourself? This world can make you look bigger, more professional, smarter, even more successful than I'm sure you already are. Now, first impressions last. You may only have a second or 2 seconds to make a visual impression on someone on the web. And if you do get a second impression, it better be exactly like the first, because you have to be able to be recognized, to be memorable, and to be remembered. That's the only way to become someone's favorite. Now, design is a little bit of art and a little bit of science. Here's the science part, and the science part is pretty deep. Semiosis and psycholinguistics. These are big words that mean essentially that signs and symbols mean something. In the last century, science has used consumer insights to drive design's effectiveness. Corporations have spent millions of dollars on the science of design using methods like focus groups and ethnographic studies. One study showed, in fact, that design-driven companies outperformed the Standard & Poor's 500 by 220% over a 10-year period of time. So, in short, design is really good for business. Now, here's the art part. Design is really art with a job to do. Design can work for you, and aesthetics matter. The shapes and symbols are symbolic. They have psychological impact. Colors have an emotional impact. Now, it's been proven that people remember stories better than they remember facts. But they also remember images and colors even better than they remember stories. So color is pretty important. Every design element gives you an opportunity to tell your story. Now, designers are trained professionals who've studied color and symbolism and balance and aesthetics, and they can help you tell your story in a really clear and effective way. There are a lot of logos in the world. I'm sure the local softball team down the street has a logo. But a brand design needs to be made up of a larger group of branding design elements. And those elements have to live consistently across all of your brand touchpoints. So what do I mean by brand touchpoints? Brand touchpoints are any place that your brand shows up in the world, either digital or physical. That can be a website, it can be content, it can be social media, it can be trade shows, it can even be you physically showing up at a conference. It can be print, it can be business cards. Every brand touchpoint that you have should be as consistent and as memorable as possible. In short, an ecosystem is a complex network of interconnecting things. And what you want to do is design a brand ecosystem. So I'm going to show you 9 elements of a brand ecosystem. They'll all be related to each other, and they can affect each other in a beneficial or detrimental way, depending on how they're designed. You want to think of your brand design as an ecosystem, very holistically. And I've added a bonus at the end. Now, logos. Logos are made up of shapes, colors, symbols, and phrases. And all of these things mean something. So therefore, a lot of strategic thought and psychology goes into creating an identity or a logo. Fonts. Fonts have personalities. A brand design generally needs at least 2 fonts, a primary font and a secondary font. Their personalities can be funny, quirky, serious, techno, masculine, or feminine. You need to consider what your customer is expecting from your brand. Are you serious, fun, conservative? That's going to affect your font choice. Now, color. Color means something. Color has deep emotional impact on people. Color has subconscious meaning. Color can make you feel healthy. It can make you feel peaceful. It can even make you feel hungry, like increase your appetite. Choosing a color can affect the mood of your brand. Now, you have to keep in mind that while you may like the color orange, green might be more suited to what your company is about or what your consumers are expecting from you. Now, color is the strongest asset you have for recall and recognition. Across all of your brand touchpoints, you should use the same color palette. And a color palette is usually made up of 4 to 5, sometimes more colors. You need to have a dark color, a light color, a neutral, a pop color, something bright, and then your brand color. Element number 4 is pattern or texture. Brands can also use patterns or textures consistently to become a recognizable element for your brand. So Louis Vuitton has their pattern they use on all their luggage. Apple has equated a brushed metal with their own identity. Paul Smith has a signature stripe. Burberry has a plaid. Now, element number 5 is photography. Photography is often overlooked, but can be a really strong, recognizable element for your brand. Now, if you try to focus in on one style, it can really cement you into people's minds. And as many photographers there are in the world, there are that many photography styles. It could be motion, it could be black and white, it could be posterized, it could be interesting cropping. There's lots of different styles that you can choose from. Now, illustration and iconography. Because we operate on the web, the need for iconography is pretty high, so you might want to think about an illustration style you might use for icons. And as many artists as there are in the world, there are that many illustration styles. Everything from sketchy to collage to realistic to retro to flat, quirky cool. Choose an illustration style that aligns with your mission, your purpose, your story, and your brand. Sound. Sound is another branding element. Sound can be used in jingles. It can be used in intros and outros. It can be used in podcasts. Now, Intel has a sound, bum, 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 for Intel Inside, right? You remember that. What does the music say about your brand? Now, again, you might like jazz, but depending on what your business is, your customers might be expecting the Ramones. Element number 8 is layout design. How you lay out the design elements on your page can be really distinctive. You should develop and use a layout that's really recognizable and differentiated. You could use color blocking or large photographs or big areas of text. Think about it and think about it how it aligns with your brand story. Tone of voice. This is a big one. Now, this can happen in either writing or in audio and sound. Tone of voice conveys your brand personality and your brand story, your narrative. So what's your style? Are you funny, glib, factual, energetic, straightforward, cute? Tone of voice can also address age. It can address gender. It can address ethnicity or income level. Another additional element of verbal branding is a tagline or a slogan. So a catchphrase like "just do it" that Nike uses, or "I'm loving it" with McDonald's. Try to make it 10 words or less and really punchy. It can really add a level of story that can be used in an additional way for your customers to identify you. Now, here's the bonus. One very overlooked element of branding, but great for personal brands. But it takes a lot of guts and an absolute level of consistency. But you can use personal style as an element in your branding. So your hair, your clothing, an accessory. Think of Marilyn Manson with his white contacts, or Bill Nye in his bow tie, or Colonel Sanders with his white suit. Choosing to adopt a personal style element can make you memorable as a personality. Now, all of these brand design elements need to be tied together. And so what we do is we create a brand guidelines document. This can be a single page or an entire book. What you do is pull together all your brand design ecosystem elements together, all in one place, so you can see what they look like in relationship to each other. That way, if something's missing, you'll know you have to design into it, or if something doesn't fit, you'll know you have to revise it. This is a really important document, especially when you're working with external creative partners, because you can hand this to them and say, this is what my brand looks and feels like. And this is incredibly important because designers can go off, and if they don't have an idea of your brand, they can spend a lot of your money and time in directions that aren't aligned with what you really need. And so this document is a great fail-safe for that. Now, let's look at some examples. So we'll look at examples of some great personal brand design and some personal brand design that needs to be improved. Now, I've blurred out most of the names and the photos in this to protect the innocent. The first one is Mrs. Anonymous. Mrs. Anonymous is an internet marketer and she needs some help. Her brand personality is kind of hard to determine, and there's a slight reference to a color palette on her website, but that's about it. On her social media, she's all over the map. She has a different profile photo in each site. She has a different banner image on every site. She has no consistent color palette or logo or has made any font choices. Mrs. Anonymous also publishes a tremendous amount of content on SlideShare, but she doesn't use a consistent layout or color palette in her title slides. And so there's no real way to recognize the slideshow as hers. So she doesn't really build any equity from all the time and effort that she's putting into her slideshows. Here's another one who needs help, Mr. Inconsistent. Mr. Inconsistent has a thin band of color on the top of his website, but all the branding stops there. All the photographs are a different style. There's a huge amount of visual real estate on his site, but he doesn't use it to develop any kind of brand perception. Once you blur out his name, there's almost virtually nothing there to signify that the site is his. Now on social media, he suffers from the same thing, a lack of consistency. No similar colors, no similar photography style, no content. Even his profile picture is different. And on his Twitter site, you really have to question what a gargoyle has to do with being a social media expert. What does it mean to his customers? Now the yawn is just that, plain vanilla, another casualty of a generic WordPress theme. Lots of white space, not that white space is bad, but there are no design elements that are being used. I wasn't surprised that when you blurred out this person's picture, that there was nothing that made the site memorable or even remarkable. She passed up every opportunity to use iconography or photography or illustration. There was no color energy, no font energy, no excitement. You just want to yawn and click away. Now here's a winner, Jason Resnick. He's another guy who's totally killing it in the brand design department. He has an incredibly distinctive homepage look and feel. His color palette is really tight. He has a dark ground, but he uses white, black, red, and blue exclusively. His photos choice is distinct. It's posterized, red and black or blue and black. His page layout's bold and it's recognizable, as well as his font. He uses a bold italic font. Jason's social media channels look and feel just like his website. Same logo, same photography, same fonts, same colors. Whenever you hit a channel of Jason's, you know it. Even the photos Jason uploads to Twitter are the same style as his brand design look and feel. And when you get to YouTube, you can see that he also uses the same style on his title pages. So you get the brand look and feel across every one of his channels. Now, Seth Godin has a defined personality. It's definitely a quirky, cool sensibility. His color palette is broad and whimsical. And Seth has adopted a personal style element, his yellow glasses, that you can instantly recognize him with. So it's a quick way to tell that it's Seth and not some other bald guy. The color of his glasses also link back to his brand color palette, and that's no mistake. It's a very smart and a very savvy choice. He uses a quirky, cool photo style, cropping style. And even in his the covers for his content in his books, he uses this quirky, cool retro artwork for the covers of his books. Now, the illustration style varies from cover to cover, but because his palette is so consistent, you don't really notice it. So everything else has such a clear point of view, he can get away with the variety in that one area of his brand design. Just like on Instagram, he publishes only Seth Godin quotes, so everything builds equity back to his brand, even though the imagery he chooses to back his quotes is just a little different. Here's another winner, a graphic designer named Holly Casto. She has a very distinctive brand design. She uses a handwritten cursive text and a sherbety, very soft, pale color palette. She uses a very distinctive photo style and makes every brand touchpoint instantly recognizable. The color palette in her photos is reflective of her brand design color palette, so everything works as a cohesive whole. Now on her social media channels, again, absolute consistency. Same photo style, same font choices, same profile picture, same color palette. Even her photo choices on her Facebook photo gallery reflect her brand photo style and also reflect the color of her brand. Now, another interesting point is Holly has an e-commerce site. And on her e-commerce site, she sells products. She also uses the exact same brand design elements on her e-commerce site that she does on her graphic design site. So like Chris Ducker, this cements the fact that this brand is hers just by the look and feel of the design. And her e-commerce brand benefits from the perception of quality, style, and expertise that she has with her design practice. So this really shows her brand equity at work. Holly's also provided us with a brand guidelines document where you can see that all of the different brand design elements that she uses, when you see them on one page, they sing together aesthetically. So nothing stands out as a red herring, and it really looks like poetry in design. Now I'm providing a brand design template that you can use to populate with your own brand elements. Now you can see what you have and what you don't have, and see how those elements relate to each other. Using a document like this, once you populate it, will be really great for any kind of creative service partner that you use, because you'll, again, as I said, save time, money, and headache in any kind of misdirected work by people getting off brand. Now, evolution is natural. Brands evolve over time. Businesses evolve over time. Businesses evolve because customers change, culture changes, technology changes, communication changes, channels even change. And all this change can address how your brand is perceived. So in the 100-year history of PepsiCo, culture and people have obviously changed. So the identity has had to change with it. So what can you do? How do you evolve your brand design? Well, the first thing you need to do is to do an audit of the design elements that you have. So what elements do you have and what's missing? What's consistent? What's inconsistent? And what does the visual language and the verbal tone communicate to your tribe? Is the aesthetic elevated? Is it quality graphic design work? Or is it generic, boring, or anonymous? And last of all, is it a brand ecosystem? Do the pieces relate to each other? This is really important. Ask yourself these questions. Now, go off. After you do your audit, get out and design your brand. No brand design is so great that it can't be improved. And no brand design is so broken that it can't be fixed. I know, I've fixed a lot of broken brand designs in my career. So, build a compelling brand perception that will make you somebody's favorite. There's a great quote from the CEO of Jaguar, and he said, "If you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design." Now, you invest a lot of time, money, and effort in developing your products, your services, your offering, your email list, your podcast listenership. You need to invest the same amount of time, energy, and money into your brand design, and I'll tell you why. If you get your brand design right, you need to do it early. By hiring a graphic designer, using a professional will make a huge difference. If you don't do it, the cost of fixing it down the road can be very expensive. And here's the most important part. If you don't do it consistently from the beginning, you're going to be losing brand equity over time. And so if you do it right, you only have to do it once. So you can be the 800-pound gorilla of brand design. You can be recognized, remembered, and revered by your customers and your tribe. I appreciate your time and for exploring brand design with me, and I hope you reach out to me at philipvandusen.com. I'd love to talk to you about your brand ecosystem. So that's it. Bye for now.